I have spent the last 10 years living a life that most people would consider incredibly boring. After working in corporate finance for most of my adulthood, I retired early to a small, isolated cabin in the mountains, about 3 hours away from the city. I spend my days reading, working on classic cars, and living completely off the grid. My daughter, Chloe, viewed my lifestyle choice with a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. She was incredibly ambitious, deeply embedded in the high society corporate ladder of the city, and married to a wealthy tech executive named Julian. To Chloe, my simple lifestyle made me look like an eccentric, unsuccessful old man who had given up on the world. I never argued with her or tried to correct her perception. I loved her unconditionally, so I quietly accepted the fact that she only called me once every few months and rarely invited me to her lavish social gatherings. I figured that as long as she was happy and successful, my pride didn't matter. But this year, the distance between us became an unbridgeable chasm. In early November, I called Chloe to talk about my plans to drive down for Christmas. I was looking forward to cooking dinner for her and spending some quality time together. Instead of excitement, there was a heavy, awkward silence on the other end of the line. Chloe cleared her throat and told me, in a very polished but cold voice, that it would be better if I didn't come for Christmas this year. She explained that Julian's corporate board members and several high-profile investors were coming to their estate for a massive holiday gala. "Dad, it's a very formal event," she said, trying to soften the blow but failing miserably. "The people attending are high-net-worth individuals, and honestly, I just don't think you'd fit in. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable around them, and it's just really important for Julian's career that everything looks perfect." The underlying message was loud and clear: she was ashamed of me. She didn't want her wealthy friends to see her flannel-wearing, cabin-dwelling father ruining her perfect, elite image. It hurt deeply, more than I cared to admit, but I kept my voice calm. I told her I understood, wished her a Merry Christmas, and hung up the phone. I decided to spend the holidays alone in my cabin, watching the snow fall and working on an old 1967 Mustang engine in my garage. Christmas Eve arrived, and a massive, blinding blizzard hit the city and the surrounding counties. Up in my mountain cabin, I was perfectly safe and warm, but down in the lowlands, the storm caused absolute chaos. Power lines snapped, roads froze over, and a critical electrical grid failure plunged Chloe's exclusive, gated neighborhood into total darkness and freezing temperatures. What Chloe and Julian didn't know wasn't just a hobby. Over the last 7 years, I had quietly invested over $4 million of my retirement portfolio into developing a private, highly advanced renewable energy and emergency backup infrastructure company. I was the primary shareholder and chairman of Vanguard Grid Solutions, the very company the state government had just contracted to build the city's emergency backup power systems. On Christmas morning, while the storm was still howling, I received an emergency call from the governor's office. The city's primary hospital and the entire northern residential sector, including Chloe's neighborhood, were in critical danger due to freezing conditions. They needed Vanguard's mobile mega generators deployed immediately, and as the lead engineer and chairman, I was the only one who could authorize and oversee the high-risk, sub-zero activation sequence. I pulled on my heavy winter gear, boarded our company's armored command vehicle, and headed straight into the heart of the storm. We worked for 6 grueling hours through freezing winds and blinding snow. Standing on the front lines alongside state technicians, I personally directed the emergency grid bypass, successfully restoring heat and power to over 50,000 homes and the regional medical center. Because of the high-stakes nature of the crisis, local and national news crews were broadcasting live from our mobile command center. Down in her freezing, dark mansion, Chloe, Julian, and their elite guests were huddled around a battery-powered television, wrapped in expensive blankets, desperately looking for updates on when the power would return. Suddenly, the live broadcast cut to a breaking news announcement. The anchor proclaimed that a major catastrophe had been averted thanks to the immediate, heroic intervention of Vanguard Grid Solutions. The camera cut to a live feed of the frozen command site. There, standing next to the city mayor and a state general, was me. I was covered in snow, holding a thermal blueprint, giving direct orders to the engineering crew. The news anchor spoke with profound respect. "We are standing here with the elusive founder, chairman, and chief investor of Vanguard Solutions, billionaire philanthropist Thomas Vance, who personally came out of retirement today to save our city's grid. Julian's jaw dropped. The investors and corporate board members in the living room immediately stood up, staring at the screen in absolute awe. One of the top investors looked at the television and muttered, "Unbelievable. That's Thomas Vance. He's a ghost in the financial sector. Nobody can ever get a meeting with him. He practically owns the infrastructure of this entire state." Chloe stared at the screen, her face turning completely pale as the realization hit her like a physical blow. The unsuccessful, embarrassing father she had banned from her house to protect her social standing was the very man her husband's entire corporate board worshipped, and the exact man who had just restored the heat to her freezing mansion. An hour after the broadcast, my phone lit up with dozens of frantic text messages and missed calls from Chloe and Julian. Julian sent a text begging me to come over, saying it would be an absolute honor to have me at the gala and that they had saved a seat for me at the head of the table. Chloe called me, her voice shaking, crying as she apologized, claiming she had just been stressed and didn't mean what she said in November. I didn't take her call. I simply sent a short, polite text back to her phone. "I'm glad your heat is back on. Enjoy your gala with your high net worth individuals. As you said, I wouldn't fit in. Merry Christmas." I turned off my phone, drove back up to my quiet mountain cabin, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and enjoyed the most peaceful Christmas of my life. My daughter had played a shallow game of status, forgetting that the man who raised her didn't need a spotlight to hold all the power. She wanted a perfect image, but in the end, she had to watch the news to see who her father really was.